Hello, Christina.
Hi.
We have a special guest in the studio today.
We do, if you hear thumpins.
It's Garfield, and he's up on the desk, and he's, going at it with his... that's probably not the way to say that. He's wagging his tail and hitting the microphone. But it's either that or he screams. So it's a three-person podcast today.
Person?
Yeah, 3-entity podcast today.
There we go.
Should we start off with some housekeeping things?
Yeah.
So, moving into November, which is Aviation Month, we're going to be looking at a 2-episode month. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to be leaving soon.
You really are.
And the frequency that we can record stuff, Watering Hole is going to, the information is still going to be the information.
Yes.
But anything that we talk about in a talkie, it's gonna eventually, the information's going to expire to the point where it doesn't matter.
Yep.
So it just makes a little more sense if we just keep it to Watering Holes for the duration of November, December, probably not January, but...
Yeah, January we'll start getting back into our somewhat normal schedule where I think we're going to move talkies down to... monthly, bi-monthly, somewhere in there. It's going to be a lot of exploration going forward, trying to figure out how to do a podcast from across the world. Yeah.
There's going to be quite a bit of experimentation, and we're going to figure it out. But
so bear with us. We're still looking forward to bringing you some somewhat quality content. And happy Aviation Month. It is National Aviation Month, is it not?
As far as I'm aware, yeah.
Hell yeah. For those of you who don't know, I love airplanes. Freaking love airplanes. Christina's been trying to get me into... Oh, Garfield, are you going to start sneezing?
He's got the look.
He does.
False alarm.
Okay. She's been trying to get me into building model airplanes, which sounds like a dangerous hobby for me, because what do I need another... I don't need another hobby, but maybe I do.
You seem fascinated by the thought, though. So I want to encourage that.
I am totally fascinated. So we have a plan to go out to the mall and go look at... They have a big model store here. Mm-hmm. And I'm so excited.
There's no way in hell we're not going to find you at least one.
Of what I would want to build, yeah.
Exactly.
An F-14, an F-18, somewhere. I like that kind of string of airplanes. They're fighter jets is what they are. But anyway, for Aviation Month, we each picked a watering hole topic, and for me, this episode, we're going to be looking into survivorship bias. Is that something you've ever heard of? Did you ever take a stats class where they talked about that?
Not really, no.
Okay. So, little background. During World War II, statistics were made on the operational effectiveness of military aircraft as well as survivability. So why did they do this? Each nation, we're looking specifically at the U.S. here, tracked their aircraft for maintenance, knowing which aircrafts were operational or inoperational, for logistics and planning flight patterns and fights and that sort of thing. And they also wanted to know how to make aircraft more survivable.
Okay.
So it seems like a very normal thing that they would be looking into.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Until we get into survivorship bias. Survivorship bias is not only an aviation concept, but it is also a psychology and a statistical concept. Survivorship bias is defined as a logical error in which attention is paid only to those entities that have passed through or survived a selective filter, which often leads to incorrect conclusions.
Oof.
So I have to tell you, this is one of my very favorite concepts over psychology and aircraft and everything. Just I don't know why I'm so beyond fascinated with it.
Okay.
But there's just something about this that I find so intriguing. So survivorship bias occurs because there's a selection process that makes it harder to collect data from the less successful parts of the population. So how does this relate back to aviation? It starts with Abraham Wald, a mathematician who used statistics to help minimize the damages to bomber aircraft whilst taking survivorship bias into the equation. So he was the first one during World War II. He was from Austria, and he was a Jewish mathematician who flew to the U.S. to help the U.S. military defeat the Nazis.
Okay.
And he did it through mathematics, which I'm not a mathematics human normally, but like this is insane. Okay, so the problem: enemy bullets could shoot down airplanes and fighter jets, right? The bombers. And so the solution was to strengthen the outside of the aircraft.
Okay.
So just as a question, so if you were told how you have to strengthen the outside of an aircraft, what would your just like common sense like tell you to do when strengthening anything really?
Reinforce the walls.
Great. There we go. That's great. So
that's not what he did.
No, it's no, it is.
Okay.
But different than how the military could have done it, which is not I also like this because it's freaking hilarious to me that the military was just so wrong.
Okay. Cool.
So the planes that made it home were riddled with bullet holes all throughout the body, the wings, and the tail of the aircraft. These holes were then mapped, and they found a pattern. I actually have a picture for you. Here. Okay, we'll throw this picture up on Statistics by Jim. I just needed the picture.
Statistics by Jim?
Yeah, I clicked on a thing and it brought me to the Statistics by Jim. I hate Yahoo.
Why are you using Yahoo?
I don't know.
What year is it?
I don't know. I thought I had Google installed, but apparently when I updated my computer, it went through Yahoo. So here's the airplane. As you can see, the red dots are where they map. Can you see that? I can only turn my monitor so far.
Yeah.
Is where they mapped out the damage. So common sense would tell you, where would you reinforce the airplane?
Probably the wings and then the middle portion.
Anywhere there's the red dots, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And that was what the military thought too. Oh. They were wrong.
Oh.
So common sense would tell us that we would need to add armor to the parts of the aircraft to keep them from taking damage. The military thought the same thing. It was Abraham Wald that pointed out that these bullet-riddled aircraft were the ones that made it back home. Therefore, the areas of the planes and jets, though badly damaged, still managed to make their mission and return. So
that's fair.
It was the other aircraft, the ones that received damage outside of the emerged pattern, that did not make it back, and therefore were not able to be assessed. And that's where that's what survivorship bias is.
Okay.
It's the inability to collect data due to not having enough, due to parts slipping through the cracks, essentially.
Okay.
That
makes sense.
The military wanted to reinforce the parts of the aircraft that would survive taking artillery and leaving the other parts of the aircraft, like the mid-wing, the mid-tail, the nose, and the engines open and vulnerable to enemy fire, because the ones that made it back did not possess any damage to these specific sets. So the fuselage here took damage mostly in the center, but because there was not a lot of the big machinery that they were worried about, as well as the ends of the wings and the ends of the tail, they made it back.
Right.
Because Wald understood survivorship bias, he was able to convince the military to reinforce the more vulnerable parts of the aircraft instead. This is also backed up by interviews via World War II pilots that stated they aimed for the engines, the fuel tanks, and the mid part of the fuselage because a hit to that part of the aircraft was more likely to take down an enemy fighter.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
So if you hit the fuel tankers or the engines, they're not coming back.
Right.
Wald found that a 20 millimeter cannon shell to the engine area was the most likely thing to cause loss of an aircraft, followed by a 7.9 millimeter machine gun hit to the cockpit.
Ooh.
With this, Wald was able to make predictions for future loss of aircraft after strengthening the aircraft. Wald's findings were then printed in the Center of Naval Analysis after being declassified, and they were referenced during the Korean and Vietnam Wars.
Gotcha. So this, around when was this supposed to be happening? World War II.
So
okay.
the 40s.
Cool.
I think I find this so interesting because not only is it a aviation topic, but it can be related back to your own life.
In what way?
In the things that you are dealing with well versus the things that you don't deal with well.
Oh.
And I feel like people often, like when they're not dealing with stuff, you can't see it.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's use divorce as an example, right? Like for children whose parents are getting divorced, right?
Okay.
Like for a child who's very outward about that, you would be able to see that damage like in the wings, right? You'd be able to see how that's being affected.
Right.
But it's like other smaller things like problems at school that are really troubling the child, and you won't be able to see them because they're not outwardly being spoken about, vice versa. Problems at school for some kids versus they hide that their parents are getting a divorce or somewhat. I don't know if that's like a really good example. It makes really good sense in my head. I don't know if I'm articulating it in a way.
I mean, that kind of makes sense. I was thinking more like maybe when you have a relationship with somebody and it ends, you have your version and you're going to spread your version, but they have their version. And the people that you tell your version to are never going to hear the other side.
That makes a lot of sense.
And you can't take in the information from the other side, so therefore you have to draw your own conclusions, which give you survivor bias.
There's something about it that just is so interesting to me, how we as like a society often like the fallacy of missing the part that's actually really, really big. Like when it comes to like elections and things of that nature, like we're missing the big picture here a lot of the time because we're so focused on like the little parts that the news is talking about, but we're missing the fact that, oh, this is going to be the leader, right, of the U.S. or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't a very long aviation topic, I guess. Maybe I should have added a little bit more.
I mean, it was definitely interesting. I never really thought about that aspect of it before. Tell us more about, like, things that draw you to aviation. Because there's a lot of people out there that are really, really into it, and then there's a lot of people that really don't give a shit. And I'm just so confused as to... Because it gets me where I need to go.
Yeah.
And overall, like, it's a fantastic technological feat that we have, done in this existence that we have. But other than that, like the marvel of it, I don't get the rest of it because it doesn't grip me like it grips you. So why exactly do you love it? I
think I was first introduced to the concept of aviation being even a job when I was like born, and then into my toddler years, my grandfather was a mechanic.
Okay.
On
I didn't know that.
Very prevalent. He worked for United Airlines, and he was a mechanic for United Airlines.
Really?
Yeah. His sole job was working on doors.
Stellar. We need those.
And there's crazy amounts of technology in the doors alone, let alone the rest of the airplane, right?
I believe it.
And like, let me show you the inside of a 757.
Because like when you get on a plane, the first thing that you see is the door, and it's open, and you can see all the intricate like machinery that is inside of the door itself, to like all the hydraulics and everything that's needed for it. So that's one of the first things you see, and then you're in. But great.
But his whole deal was he worked on the inside of doors. Which was fascinating. And
like,
then
functionally,
yeah. Okay. He was and mechanically how it all worked.
Great.
Within the rest of the plane and the airlock and all that shit, right?
Right.
And then when we were in probably the 6th grade, a parent of one of my fellow students, he was a pilot.
Oh.
And he came in and he did a whole, like, science lesson on how airplanes worked.
Oh, cool.
And that was fascinating, dude.
Wait. So, did you say one of your fellow students?
Mm-hmm. I was in 6th grade.
A 6th grader came in and...
No, his parent.
Okay.
One of my fellow students' parent was a pilot.
Oh, I missed the parent part. Okay. I'm here now.
And he came in and he explained, like, how planes fly, right? And he flew, like, 757s, like the big Boeing
Cool.
jets for American or somebody.
Okay.
And that was fascinating to me. And I always kind of wanted to learn, like, how to fly, right?
Uh-huh.
And just, like, the idea of being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Bonkers. And I always liked the idea of being licensed in a thing that a lot of people aren't, like, a lot of common people aren't licensed in.
Okay.
I was not ready to learn how much math is involved with airplanes, right?
Yeah.
I had a grandfather or a great-grandfather, I guess, he was a flight medic in the Korean War.
Okay.
He was a flight medic in the Korean War, and that was bonkers to learn.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just so many, like, little bits of information at different parts of my, like, personality and life forming.
Mm-hmm.
We're just feeling like aviation, here's this. Now you're, I don't know. I was like 17 when my school got an aviation class and I wanted to take it, but it was focused on drones.
Ah.
And I was like, there's nothing I care about less. There's nothing I care about less than drones. So I didn't end up taking that. But part of me kind of wishes I did now.
Right.
I was like, God, I want to learn to fly a plane so bad.
It may be like that's how you kind of weasel your way in. Like, not weasel your way in, but like you kind of get yourself to that mindset, you know, once you take a drone class of some sort. That's like your 101 into getting into the big heavy shit that comes with an actual full-blown aviation course.
Yeah. When I was probably pretty much off and on my whole life, but when I was like 12, I really, really wanted to be a flight attendant.
Really?
That's what I wanted to do with my life.
Really?
Uh-huh. Can you imagine? That's what I wanted to do. Just the idea of getting to spend every day in an airplane was awesome to me. I love flying. I don't think you understand just the, like, amount of excitement that flying brings me. I know most people are, like, really, really nervous, right, when flying. And the first time I flew, I was terrified. Or, like, my first time flying when I was conscious enough to, like, old enough to remember it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely terrified. I was probably about 12. And my father took my brother and I to DC.
Oh, okay.
And that was, like, one of the coolest things I'd ever done was getting to do that flight, right?
Yeah.
And
because you said you were how old?
Like 12.
I mean, that's pretty exciting for a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Maybe I was 13. I don't know. I was in 7th grade.
Okay.
So whenever, you know.
Yeah.
All these, like, I'm telling you, all the formative part, like, when my personality was forming, just little things here and there about airplanes. And,
okay.
I don't know. I find flying fascinating. Mm-hmm. And I love being in the air. And I desperately want to go up in one of those jets. Okay, this is going to be, like, a really niche thing that you've probably never seen because it's Tom Cruise related. Okay. But did you ever see when Tom Cruise took James Corden up in his airplane?
No, I did not.
Okay. Well, have you ever seen any of the videos where people get to go up in fighter jets, like average normal people?
I think so. And
they end up, like, passing out because of the G-force and everything?
Yeah.
I want to do that more than I can describe to you. I don't know if there's anything in the world I want to do more than that right there. I don't know. Just aviation in itself fascinates me. And I wish I had more words to articulate why I find it so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, I got hooked on Top Gun, which didn't help. Top Gun did that thing to me that it was meant to do, except it missed the military mark for me. I think it missed the military mark because, one, I was a little too old, and I was already married to a military man. But it did the I want to learn to fly thing for me, but it didn't quite hit the let me go fly for the military.
Right. So, like, when you eventually get back to the States, you want to start, like, heading in that direction to learn.
Yes.
And get yourself in an actual plane one day.
That's the goal.
Awesome.
Because, like, one of my very favorite things in the world is driving.
Okay.
So I imagine flying is like that on crack, man. Like, it's got to be that, but so much better.
Oh, yeah? Oh, yeah. And, like, I know mentally it's going to bring you so much joy, but physically I can only imagine that's going to hurt. Because, like, because I've seen you on long drives.
Oh,
and, like, if it's too long of a drive or we've done just a little too much, next day, I don't see you. I don't hear from you. You are done for. So I can't imagine your physical body going up in a plane like that and you being in charge of it. Mm-hmm. You're going to get wrecked for, like, 3 days.
I think it's also a conditioning thing because I don't drive long distances here. That's true. When I would drive back home, and my commute was an hour each way to work, and I worked 5 days a week, that drive didn't bother me.
Yeah.
So I think that's true. Just a training your way up to it thing.
Yeah.
But I desperately want to do a flight simulator. I want to do it all. I want to be an aviation girly. But
great. Well,
we'll see if that's in my future.
I think you stand a very, very, very good chance of, like, getting to tick all those boxes for sure.
Do you know it's the worst part?
What's the worst part?
So much math.
That's fair.
And my brain is not geared for math.
Right.
I am a language arts girly forever. So learning the math is a little bit scary for me.
Yeah.
But you know what they say.
What exactly do they say?
If Tom Cruise can do it, how hard can it be?
Fair enough.
And
they do say that.
We'll get there eventually.
I feel like if you've got the right amount of passion for something, all of the things that your brain doesn't just naturally do anyway, that will get overridden. Like, fair. You will, if you care about something enough, you overcome those values. Because, like, my brain doesn't function in that way either. I'm not a math girly and I am not a language girly. I want to desperately be both, but I can't. And that's just how my brain functions. But I have learned little bits of different languages, and that gets me by.
Yeah, you do so much better in Korean than I do.
Oh, I'm glad you think that. But generally speaking, my brain can't handle that. That is not how it works. My brother and sister are very, very good with language. I am just simply not, and I think I want to learn so many, but I can only get bits and pieces, and that's enough for me. But for somebody that's like, oh, I really want to go to Amsterdam one day and just live there.
Yeah.
You gotta learn the language to function there correctly. And if you don't have the brain for it, you're gonna do it anyway. Yeah. And I think the same is gonna be for you when it comes to aviation and math.
I mean, if Jake did it with his math for his job, when you think of my husband, do you think that he is a math guy?
I think he's a very analytical guy, so I think he could be a math guy.
I don't see him doing, like, long-form equations, right?
Fair.
His school that he's at, he's doing long-form equations. They did a whole thing on long division with polynomials, was, like, his intro stuff. And I was like, you're literally doing, hardcore algebra and whatever's above that in the same realm, calc or whatever.
Yeah, I
have no idea.
It's not my realm. I know that there's different directions you can go after a certain point in math.
Radio, it doesn't click in my brain.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it does make sense because, like, the area of study that he's trying to work within involves a lot of actual data.
Yes.
And that involves quite a bit of calculation. Mm-hmm. So you have to be really on it, and you have to understand the why and everything. So doing all of that makes sense.
He's good at. I just
good.
And then you throw the numbers at it, and I'm like, how? But I think I'll get there. Yeah. I know this was a very short watering hole on survivorship bias, and it was just me yapping about how bad I want to learn how to fly.
Yeah, but like that was kind of nice, because normally when it comes to watering holes, there's not a lot of personal touch. It's fair. Just here's the information, here you go. But this was kind of nice because we got to learn a little bit more about you and your passion for flying. Yeah. So that was cool.
I feel very weird being passionate about it because we are on an army base.
Yeah.
Where their whole deal is they fly.
Yeah.
And they fly helicopters. And then our base that we're like sanctioned out of, Humphreys or whatever, they are airplanes and helicopters.
Right.
And I'm like, you are like, we went down when we were down at Osan to bid Ryan goodbye, right? We took him to lunch and all that. And we were out on the street, and you know when all the pilots came out in their bright red jumpsuits? Mm-hmm. I was mid-discussion with Ryan, and I stopped. And I looked, and there was like 8 of them, right? And I think there was like 3 or 4 women.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was having a whole moment, but I'm like, I can't be that person, right? In the middle of and I was just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, there's women and they fly things. That's so cool. And I was just like fangirling about it in my insides. And Ryan was just like, are you good? Like, we were having a conversation. But I need you to know. I want to do it. I want to do it.
Everybody's got something. This is your thing.
Do you know what also is scary?
What's the scary thing?
It's so expensive.
What, to learn?
All of it. To learn, to do, all of it. So much money.
I mean,
I'm telling you, I need that's going to be like the amount of times Jake and I have joked about like needing to find an old man to finance this. Be like, hey, you want to finance like some old decrepit dude who was like really big into aviation and wants to like pass on the legacy. Like, hey, you want to... Hey, Jerry, you want to give me some money? I don't need anything from a man. Actually, give me some money. I have my own money. But it's the 1 new vape, 2 lines of Coke, 3 drinks from the bar, 4 more lines of Coke. But like a later verse, she's like, I don't need anything from a man. Actually, give me some money. I have my own money, but I want money from a man. Or something like that's what I need. So if anybody wants to finance my flight journey, hit us up in the comments.
Bring it.
I'm 5'6", pink hair, wild personality. Trust me with your airplane. I'm cute. I know things. I can figure it out. That's also my delusion. If the plane was going down, I think I could figure it out. Which I know is, like, in my deepest bones, I know is not true. But you know how everybody has that, like, little fantasy of, like, oh, I know what I would do. I know what I would do if that was happening. Yeah. That's one of mine. That's my, like, oh, I could do it. I could figure it out. Can't believe I just shared that with the fucking internet. That's my survivorship bias. I've lived this long. I've survived this long. So what's the harm, right?
Yeah.
I can survive it, but it's fine. That's my fallacy.
If Tom Cruise can survive it.
Yeah, if Tom Cruise can do it, how hard can it be? All right. We'll see you next week where Christina's actually going to give us a watering hole with more information than I did. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.